Welcome back to the Real Slim Fatty Show. I'm your host, Fatty Hawama. I wrote my resignation letter 3 times, and not from a job, but from my own company, from Clockwork, the thing that I built, the thing that I poured my entire life into, the thing that I bled for. 3 times I sat at my desk at 2 in the morning and I'm like, I'm done. Like, fuck this. And every single time I'm like, let me just keep figuring it out. There was always some renewed sense of purpose in what I was doing. And when people talk about burnout and they talk about founder burnout, that shit is real. And I've always known when I was burnt out, but I always just kept pushing. I always just found some reason or some conversation with my best friend or something like that that made me keep pushing. When you're your own boss, you're your own company, you have investors, you have employees, you have team members, you have all this, you don't really know what to do. So when you're burnt out, who are you going to complain to? You can't go to your boss and say, give me more money or I need to work less time or do anything like that. You're a founder, it's all on you. And the burnout, the real version of burnout is not the Instagram version when someone's like, oh, I'm taking a mental health day. There are no mental health days when you're a founder. You can't just take, at least for me, from my perspective, you can't just take a day off. If you take a day off, then decisions, especially in the early days, decisions just don't get made. I can't just not clock in. I can't just not show up for my team to help them move the needle forward. And real founder burnout is the kind where you forget what your own voice sounds like because you haven't said anything honest in months. You are on autopilot. You are the autopilot. And this is this episode, I've been thinking about what I'm going to name it, and either fat or burnout or something like that, but it really is the fire that almost ate me because I forgot about who I was. And this is the thing that no one warns you about when you're building something from nothing. When you're building a company from absolutely thin air, it does not matter. You're not buying a building, you're not buying you're literally building something completely net new, and it eats you. No one tells you about that. So I'm going to talk about like the myth that founders are sold. So let me take you back before the burnout, before the panic attacks at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. when I can't even sleep. There's this story that we all get told. You've heard it, right? The founder story, hero's journey, someone in a garage, in a dorm room, coffee shop. They sacrifice everything. They grind, they hustle. One day someone rings the bell and it was like, oh, so worth it. And I bought into that story when I started Clockwork. And I thought that that was going to be my journey. I thought that's exactly how it was going to be for me. I'm going to grind, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to be a hermit for 5 years, and then it's just going to explode. And I bought it wholesale. I didn't just believe in the hustle, I worshiped it. Sleep when you're dead, outwork everyone. Your competition is working when you're sleeping. I had those quotes in my mind. They were tattooed literally everywhere. And growing up as a Jordanian immigrant in America, my parents lived the American dream. So I saw them do the same thing. They bought restaurants, and my dad worked 15-hour days, 7 days a week. And that's how I grew up working. That's how I was going to school, and my weekends and my nights and my summers were working. I didn't know how not to work hard. And while that's good and it was beneficial, it screwed me. And it screwed me in the long run. When I worked at Boeing, my first job out of college was at Boeing. And at Boeing, I was working my ass off. Boeing did not give a shit if I worked that hard or if I didn't work that hard. And it was never really rewarded. It was more rewarded of like, dude, calm down. Like when I went in Boeing, I automated, I'd say 75% of my job within the first 60 days. Because there were systems like and let's not make that sound so, oh, wow, you're amazing. No, my job was so simple. I was a business and planning analyst. I was paid $48,000 a year. And my job was to pull reports for the engineers every day. Sure, I worked on that 15. It was cool. It was a fighter jet, all this stuff. I was literally pulling reports and sending them to the engineering team and sending them to the Navy every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll never forget when I first started, they gave me a list of the reports that I needed to pull every day. And I was like, why don't we use this system that automates it? It was called Cognos. This was, back in 2011, 2010. And everyone was like, oh, Cognos is brand new. And so I convinced my manager to send me to a training session. It was a 1-day training session for Cognos. I'm like, great, we can automate every single thing. And I came back to my team. My team were like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, and for them, they got scared because it was a team of, 6 people, and everyone was like, well, you're automating all of our job. And so I was going crazy, but Boeing didn't care. Boeing was like, all right, awesome. There were days where I would just sit there because I automated so much of my job. And when it comes to running your own company, the problem is the myth of that, it leaves out the cost. It skips the chapter where the founder is literally sitting in the parked car for 40 minutes because they can't walk into their office. It skips the part where you snap at someone you love over something that does not matter because your nervous system has literally been shot for 18 months. And the myth tells you that the grind is temporary. You'll push through, you'll get through this phase, and then you'll have fun. You'll enjoy it. But the goalposts move every day, all the time. First, it's once we launch. Then once we hit market product fit. Then once we close our funding. Then once we're profitable. Then this. Then let me hire this person. And you keep running. And the finish line runs faster and farther than you can run. And I always knew that in the back of my mind that it was not sustainable. I could not keep doing what I was doing. And so the myth tells you that the grind is temporary, that you'll push through the phase, that eventually you'll love it. And I remember the exact moment that I realized I was in trouble is it was a Tuesday. We just closed this massive deal. I was working on this deal for like 6 months, huge client, big revenue. And everyone's like, oh, this is awesome. This is what we've been waiting on. And I felt nothing. I could not give a shit less. I felt absolutely nothing. It was like watching a party through a window. And of course, I'm like, oh, this is great. Great milestone. Good job, team. But inside, I felt nothing. I was hollow. I literally went home that day, went and worked out, ate dinner on my couch watching Love is Blind. That's how I celebrated this huge win because I was so burnt out. That's the thing about burnout. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up one morning and say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to fuck up your mentality piece by piece. It's more like a tide, and it comes in so slowly that by the time you notice water's at your neck, you've been there for months and you cannot move. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I don't care about anything. And so let me kind of walk you through what that descent actually feels like, what it looks like, because I think if more people, more founders were talking about this honestly and really sharing the journey, or quite honestly, had enough energy to share the journey, because I know when I was going through it, I don't want to tell anyone that I was burnt out. And if you do, you're embarrassed, because what investor wants to invest in a founder that's burnt out? Absolutely no one, especially when you're trying to start from the early days. So you get fake stories from everyone. And I got fake stories from a lot of the founders that I met, especially in the early days, not because it was nefarious, but because they didn't know any better. And they were afraid to admit where they're at. And it starts with kind of subtle withdrawal. You stop doing things that recharge you. I love cooking. I love socializing. I love going out to eat. And it was my thing. I love it. It's my meditation. And then I started being like, well, I'll just buy those ready-made chicken things from Costco, the chicken bites, and I'll just throw them in the air fryer. It's not a big deal. Then I used to meal prep every single Sunday. Then I stopped meal prepping. I'm like, well, I'll just grab something at the office. So that therapy started going away. My meditation started going away. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months. And then I went back and I'm like, why haven't I meal prepped? Why aren't I going out to eat with my friends anymore? And then it's like, well, I'm freeing up time to focus on this, or I don't have time for it. I'm too busy. Being busy is the biggest bullshit thing in this entire industry. When you talk to anyone, hey, how have you been? Been busy. What does that even mean? It's crazy that we have that as a default answer for anyone asking, how are you doing? Or how have you been? You can't say I've been miserable. You can't say I've been burnt out. You can't say I'm on autopilot. I'm a shell of a person. I'm a shell of who I am. Say, oh, but I've been busy. And, but what's really happening is you're literally cutting off your machine. Your body needs what you need to be happy, to feel good. Friends stop calling because you cancel on them so many times. And your your family, your support system, they stop asking you about things because you snap at them, or your answer is always, oh, it's been busy, it's been crazy, it's hectic. Those were always my default answers. So when I try and explain things to my family, it frustrates me like crazy because they don't understand. They don't know what I'm going through. And so when I try and say it, they want to help and they want to give you advice. They want to give you all the things, but you can't receive it. And so it doesn't matter what they say. It ended up pissing me off. And I'm like, you don't tell me what to do because you don't know, you've never been in my shoes. And it was unfair. It was bullshit. I was an absolute asshole for a long time because I couldn't deal with my own shit in a productive, healthy way. And I didn't even know that it was happening. And then now looking back at it, I'm like, man, I was an asshole. Like my parents, they just wanted to be there for me. My siblings, my older brother, he's a doctor. And he'd always be like, well, what did that happen? And I'm like, so and so happened. He was like, dude, I can't believe it. Have you? And I'm like, dude, stop telling me what to do. Like, you're a doctor, stay in your. And it was unfair because they're doing it out of love. But when you're in such a bad place, you can't receive anything from anyone that's trying to help you. And it's as if being overwhelmed proves you're important. That's the problem with the founder mentality, the grinding, the hustle culture is you wear it like a badge. Sorry, I've been slammed. Your texts go unread for months and weeks, and people don't, oh, I've been so busy. And you think you're like, I'm doing it, right? As if being overwhelmed proves you're important, which is a joke. As if having no life outside your company means you must be so important. Your company is so unbelievably successful that you have no life. And that leads into the cynicism of it. As a founder, you're surrounded by things that legitimately frustrate you all the time, every day. Clients who ghost, prospects who ghost, investors who string you along, employees who don't care as much as you do. And how could they? Why would they? It's not their name on the thing, it's your name. So you get frustrated and you're frustrated at everything. Things aren't moving fast enough, things aren't moving good enough. Your vision is what you're going for, and you can't explain it to someone. It's like babies when all they can do is cry or they point and they don't know and they scream because they don't know how to put together the words. That's literally what it felt like for the longest time. So I didn't know how to put the words together to explain the frustration or deal with the frustration. But normal frustration is different from what happens to when you're burnt out. That frustration compounds when you're burnt out. You see enemies everywhere. The investor that doesn't want to invest in you, that's taking so slow, you're like, well, what's wrong with him? Fuck them. Or a customer that's like, hey, we're going to not use your software anymore. Well, you're wrong. You're dumb. You're not doing it the right way. And every attack, every piece of feedback feels like an attack, feels personal. Someone suggests a small change to your product, to your company, to your team. You internalize it as you're not good enough. And I'm like, well, if I'm not good enough, then fuck you. Who are you to tell me? It's my company. I'm the one I've done X, Y. And you become this like insecure version of yourself. And I've always been a very confident, secure person. But when you're burnt out, you're not yourself. And I got to a point where I hated opening Slack. I hated opening my emails, not because anything was bad on a regular basis, but because I just had this like this dread of anything's going to be bad. Everything is going to go bad at the same time, or something will happen. Like it can't be, the highs don't get high and the lows are always the low. And so that's how I felt my burnout was. The lows were always the low and the highs did not exist. Great product releases didn't matter. Great investment didn't matter. Nothing changed me getting out of the lows. And burnout, depression, however you want to call it, it was so real and it lasted for a long time. And I was so empty, and opening Slack and getting emails, it just meant that people needed something from me. And I had nothing left to give. My cup wasn't even just empty. The cup wasn't there. People literally, the cup was gone. And I had nothing else to give. And as a founder, you still have to show up. You still have to perform. And that's the trap of being a founder. That's the trap of being an entrepreneur. That's the trap of all the stuff. You're the face of the company. You are why people are going to give you money. You are why people are going to walk in the door. You're supposed to be the one with the vision, the energy, the belief. So you have to put on this mask. And you get on the all hands, you talk about the mission, and you take the investor call, and you're so confident, and I'm going to kill it. We're doing this. And every performance, it sets you back, right? Gets you back into drawing from the cup that doesn't even exist, and your body takes over. Your body is like, fuck you. For me, it was my chest. Like my chest literal had. I started clockwork when I was 29 years old. I'm 37 now. 29 going on 30. Uh, my chest had tightness, and it was there for a very long time. I'm talking months and months, a year and a half, 2 years almost. My chest was just tight. And like someone literally was holding my ribs from the outside. And my family, they're all doctors. And I'm like, hey, like, and I would have these conversations with my brother. I'm like, dude, I think I'm dying. Like and he's like, it's just stress. You're so stressed. You need to, and I'm like, dude, I can't give up. I can't walk away. I can't take a day. I can't take a week. I can't take a month. And my body literally felt like I was having a heart attack. Like my nervous system was so overloaded, it didn't know what to do. And I felt just constant anxiety, constant stress. I legitimately couldn't breathe. And I would have headaches I'd never had headaches ever in my entire life. I would have headaches that would last days. And I would wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning in sweats because my mind is on. My eyes are open, my mind is on. Good luck going back to sleep. Once your mind starts moving, oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. This person, I'm up at 3 a.m. now and my mind is gone. I'm solving problems. I'm composing emails. I'm schedule sending so people don't think I'm an insane person up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. My body was in constant fight or flight, and it was not knowing what to do. And so if anyone who's listening to this is in this stage right now, if your body is acting up, if you can't sleep, if you get sick, if you're not getting sick, if you go and you tell people all the different things that are happening and they don't necessarily know what to do, don't push through it. Your body is not trying to betray you. Your mind, it's trying to help you. It's trying to tell you that you need to relax. You need to listen to the people that are around you. You need people that love you to be there for you, and you need to be able to receive it. The biggest problem, and this was the deepest one, and this is the one that I didn't see coming, and it was impossible. When you build a company, your identity fuses with your company. You're not Fatty who started a company. You're not Fatty who is an entrepreneur. You're Fatty the founder. Then that's who you are at dinner parties. When people introduce you, it's no longer, this is my friend Fatty. He's Jordanian, Greek from St. Louis. He used to work at Boeing. This is Fatty. He founded a tech startup. That's who you are. That's how you're categorized. And then that's who you are in your own head. Your worth as a human being becomes indexed to your company's metrics. That for me, if clockwork sucked, I sucked. It didn't matter all the stuff that I did in my life. It didn't matter that I had a loving family, brothers and sister that would do anything for me. None of that mattered when I was burnt out. My identity was clockwork. If Clockwork sucked, I was worthless to the world. And you have a good month, you're a fucking genius. You have a bad month, you're a fraud. You're an imposter. What are you even doing? Revenue's up, you're successful. Revenue's down, you should have never started this company. And those extremes exist because you're so burnt out. And so if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. You know those extremes are so real. And the internal monologue of a burned out founder is so vicious. It's so vicious. It's relentless. And it's wearing your own voice so you believe every word. And that's the scary part. I got to a point where I couldn't separate failure in business from failure as a person. Clockwork's failure meant I was a failure. If a client churned, it wasn't a business problem to solve. It was evidence that I suck. If a hire didn't work out, it wasn't a lesson. I didn't learn shit from that. It was proof that I couldn't trust anyone to come in and work the company, or my company could not be successful to give someone the livelihood that they deserve. And it was a dark, dark place. It was a dark place. And I lived there for a long time, not a week, not a month, long, long time. And it was grueling. One of those nights, I'm going to tell you about a specific night. And it was a very real situation for me because, I could sit here and talk about founder burnout and all this kinds of stuff. But it was a Sunday. We had a massive, massive meeting Monday morning, a potential partnership that legitimately could change the trajectory of my company. I was supposed to be preparing, and I was just sitting there. I was just sitting on the couch, not crying, not just numb, just staring. No TV on, no doom scrolling, no phone, no nothing, just staring. And I stared at my fireplace, like my answer was written on the wall there. And I didn't know what else to do because I didn't necessarily care about the outcome of the meeting. And my mom was worried about me. She was like, "Hey, are you okay? Are you eating? We haven't heard from you." Because I talk to my family all day, every day. We have a family chat, as most people do. Um, I wasn't responding to the family chat. And when my mom calls, I pick up the phone. I don't care where I am, who I'm with. I don't care if I'm talking to the biggest investor in the world. My mom calls, I'm picking up the phone. I wouldn't pick up my mom's calls. And my mom got worried and my family got worried. Then my brother starts calling and everyone's like, "Well, what the fuck's happening?" And even the act of picking up the phone was something that I just couldn't get myself to. That's how empty I was. And I remember thinking super clearly at that moment. I was like, I've built a life where every single part of it needs something from me, everyone. And there's nothing left of me to give. And it wasn't self-pity. It wasn't, oh, I feel bad for myself, because at the end of the day, I chose to be a founder. I chose to leave a very successful CFO position to be a founder. And that was never the thing. And it was just inventory. I was doing an honest accounting of my resources, and the balance was zero. It was negative. It wasn't even zero. I would have loved for it to be zero. And that meeting, pitched, did it. We did good. I landed the deal and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. This is going to set us up." I couldn't care less. And it just meant this was another reason that Clockwork continues, that I have to be in this position for another while longer. Because I knew that was the next thing I needed to do. You start a tech company that you want to be VC backed. You have your family and friends round, and then you have your pre-seed round, and then you raise your seed round, and then you raise your Series A, and then you raise your Series B, and so on and so forth. So I had done my family and friends. I had done my pre-seed. So seed was the next thing. So I decided to go raise my seed. And so I went and raised the seed, and it was great. But it meant that the journey continues. The story must go on. I must continue to perform as Fatty the founder. When I knew something had to change. And here's what I want to say about being at the very bottom. I'm talking bottom, bottom. When you start a company, you think you know what rock bottom is. You have no idea what rock bottom is. And the bottom is not always this dramatic thing. It's not always a breakdown, a mental breakdown, or a hospital visit, or a massive failure in the company or yourself. Or I never had any of those. I never went to the ER because I was having all these issues. I never had a mental breakdown where I sat there and just completely broke down for a while. If that's ever happened, I'm genuinely empathetic with everyone that's had that situation, but it doesn't have to be that way. And sometimes it's just literally a random day, random Tuesday, random Wednesday, where you realize you genuinely haven't laughed in months. I'm talking a real laugh, not a ha, ha, ha. I'm talking a real guttural laugh from your spirit, from your heart. And sometimes it's the moment you catch yourself hoping things don't happen because you don't want to show up. I love when plans get canceled. As a founder, I fucking loved when plans get canceled because I don't have to go and perform. I don't have to be Fatty the founder. I don't have to be, oh, Fatty, he started a tech company and they just raised blah, 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 blah. That was my introduction. That's who I was. The bottom isn't just where you fall. It's where you finally stop pretending you're not falling. And that was the moment for me on that random day. I told one person, or it was a friend who had exited his startup a couple years before. And I texted him, I said, yo, I'm tired. I'm done. That's all I texted him. And his response was, yeah, I know. Me too. And it wasn't what's wrong. It wasn't how are you feeling. It wasn't go work out or go touch grass or go and talk to a therapist or it wasn't any of that. It was same. And the loneliness of it, the feeling that I was the only founder who couldn't handle it, that did more damage than the actual workload that I was putting on top of myself. Feeling alone in the loneliest job in the world made it all so much worse. And I always thought that there was some escape because of the workload, but there wasn't. And when he told me same, I felt accepted. I felt understood because the feeling of being misunderstood as a founder is one of the most real feelings you'll ever have. And I called him and we talked for hours that night. And it wasn't uh, anything profound, but in those hours when we talked, I learned that every founder is in some version of the same exact hole. They just don't talk about it because the culture tells us that struggling is a weakness. No investor is going to invest in a founder who's struggling. If you're burnt out, you're not built for this. That was the thing that we all bought into, that the real founders push through. You figure out your next thing. That's a lie. The real founders know it. The real founders feel all of it. They just don't have anyone safe to say it to. They don't feel safe saying it to anyone. They don't think that anyone else understands. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm more successful, whatever that even means, in best shape of my life than I've ever been because it gets better. And I'm not going to sit here and say I have the Rosetta Stone. I don't have the 5-step recovery plan because it was a process. It took a long time. But recovery from burnout isn't a checklist. It's not get to this and start doing this and start doing your hobbies again. It's a messy climb back. But if you give up when you're pushing through hell, you stay in hell. So you have to find a way to push through in your mind and mentally because the climb back is messy. It's nonlinear. Some days you feel like yourself, some meetings you feel like yourself, some hour you feel like yourself. And the next, you're sitting there staring at a fireplace on your couch with no words, no music, no nothing, no phone. But what happened for me wasn't anything that I could say, go and do this. That's not what helped me. Just as my experience, the first thing I did was I had a very honest conversation with my parents. I told my parents, I'm fucking tired. I'm done. And the response was, we know. And I let them know. And I told them I need help. When you tell a Jordanian family you need help, they they will do anything to make sure that you get that help, right or wrong. Of course, there's always overreaching and all that kind of stuff, but it was one of those conversations that allowed me to turn the page. And as founders, as humans, we think vulnerability makes us look weak. But what it actually does is it gives other people permission to be human with us. And when your family, your people, your circle, they see you being vulnerable and you be real, it makes them and helps them be vulnerable with you so they can meet you where you're at. So my frustrations, sharing shit, then getting something back from them that I didn't find useful would frustrate the shit out of me. But when I shared with them more of the vulnerable side, they gave me phenomenal feedback. I remember long conversations with my mom and my dad. We sat down and they gave me real wisdom. And I'm like, wow, this is coming from my parents. You know, in your mind, you're like, well, my parents are my parents. But they don't have to be founders or entrepreneurs or run VC backed companies to know who you are. And that was rare. And I opened up and allowed them to understand where I was, and it changed everything. It changed everything for me. And then I started talking to someone. And I know the stigma, especially in founder culture, like it's getting better, but we'll pay for executive coaches and business advisors and leadership consultants and all this kinds of bullshit. But the idea of sitting someone and telling them like, I am struggling emotionally and I'm struggling mentally, it felt like surrender. It felt like failure. It felt like admitting that you're not cut out to be in this role. The imposter syndrome is always real as a founder, but when you have mental things holding you back, you feel like the biggest failure. But it's not that. It's strategy. Your mind in life is your most critical asset in everything, especially as a founder, especially as a company. And not investing in your mind is the biggest misinvestment. It's the biggest thing that you can fuck up because it's like not putting oil in an engine. And then if you don't put oil in an engine, the engine seizes and it breaks down and there's no coming back from that. And that's kind of how I felt. I felt like I was an engine with no oil. I had nothing to do, nowhere to go, no answers to anything that I had. And I've always been the kind of guy, I always had the answer. I always figure it out. And the other thing that helped me was learning the difference between urgent and important. No is a full sentence. When you're running a company, you don't think that. You think you have to be there for every single person. I would always tell people, I would be on calls and I'd be like, my phone is attached to my hand. You can contact me. That was so fucking dumb. That was so dumb of what I said because people will take what you give them and not for any bad reasons. Your customers don't know that you're dealing with all this other stuff. Your investors don't know that you're dealing with all the other stuff. Your team members, especially, they don't know as a founder, you're doing 7 million things. And that's not an exaggeration. You're literally doing 7 million things. You have to switch your brain 7 million times a day. And everything at a startup, it feels so urgent. Every Slack notification was on. Didn't matter what channel, didn't matter what team. Every Slack notification was on. Intercom, the help chat, chat on the website, everything was on. I was always on 24/7. And every single thing felt like it was mine and I had to respond immediately. Every hiring decision, every employee problem, every Slack ping, when everything is urgent, everything is a fire, then nothing's urgent, nothing's important. And I started asking myself, like when things came on, what happens if I don't do this today? What happens if I don't respond right now? And most of the time it was nothing. Most of the time, one of my other team members will pick it up. Not 2 seconds, but it may take them 5 minutes. But for me, always being on, that was my brand. That was me being at Clockwork. That was me understanding. And people would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to the CEO on the website chat. And I thought that was cool. I'm like, oh, this is cute. And I'm like, what the hell? That's bullshit. And the thing that really was the unlock was, and this took the longest out of everything, this took the longest. I started rebuilding an identity of who Fatty was, of who I am outside my company. I went back to having honest conversations with my family. I went back to not telling someone I'm busy. I've been busy. I went back to being who I was. I went back to playing soccer. I went back to playing hockey. I went back to socializing with my friends. I went back to start my podcast. Like I love talking. And I found out who I really was. And I called all my friends that I've ignored for years, it felt like, and they were there. We picked up like nothing left off. And before I became Fatty the founder, I was a person. I was friendly. I was happy. I was always laughing. I was always funny. I was having so much fun with every single person that I always said, you could put me in a cardboard box, we'll have fun. That person disappeared. But I had interests. I had stuff that existed independently of revenue numbers, of funding, of money raised, all the shit that you see on LinkedIn and all the things that founders tell you, if you're not doing this, you're a failure. And I'm not going to pretend right now I'm fully healed. Absolutely fucking not. The recovery from burnout is never done. It's never done. When you're burnt out, you're burnt out. It changes the way you function. It changes the way you're wired. It changes how your nervous system even interacts with anything. I'm much more careful now, sure, but I still have days where I'm burnt out. I have meetings and hours and weeks where I'm burnt out. And I see myself going back into little patterns where I'm jumping on everything and I'm being, oh, everything is doom and gloom and we need to do this. And if we don't do this, we're fucked. And but the difference is now I know it. I see it. The self-awareness, I've always been a self-aware person, at least I thought or I think, but now the self-awareness is extreme because I'll see myself doing that shit and I'll catch myself and I'm like, oh, duh, I have something to label it. I have a language for it now. And I put my people around me, like, anyone that I'm talking to or anything like that, I'm like, yo, let me know, like, is Fatty the founder here or is Fatty here? And I will have multiple people that know me really well. They're like, dude, I don't want the founder right now. I want Fatty. And it's kind of turned into a little bit of a joke. And I'm like, shit, yeah, you're right. My bad. Let me check myself real quick. And really the climb back isn't about returning who you were before, because that person's gone. That person ran into a wall at 10 million miles an hour. That person's disappeared. The climb back is reinventing the new you, finding out who the new version of you is. And one who just runs hard, but knows when to stop, knows how to adjust, knows how to make up their mind or see things and be like, oh shit, I've seen this. I've been there before and I should adjust this because I know what it's going to lead if I keep going. And so if you're a founder listening to this and something in the last, I don't know, 30, 45, I don't know how long I've been talking, it hits a nerve. I want to say a few direct things to you. First, you're not weak. I always thought I was weak. You're not weak. The fact that you're burnt out or burning out does not mean you're not cut out to be a founder. It means you gave too much without replenishing. That's not a character flaw. It's very normal. And I did it. A lot of people do it. Probably every single one of your peers is doing it. Second, the company needs you whole more than it needs you busy. Your depleted version making 75 decisions a day is doing more damage than you being rested making 10 decisions. So step back so you can move forward in a better way. Third, tell someone. And it doesn't matter who you tell. It does not matter if it's a friend, a family, brother, sister, cousin, dog. It doesn't matter. A therapist, founder, stranger in a DM. Just break the seal. Go to Reddit. Do something, because the isolation is doing more damage than the workload. I promise you that. And fourth, your company is not your baby. I know we always like, oh, it's my baby. People always tell you, oh, it's your baby. You should care. You care so much because it's your baby. And I know it feels that way. And there's days where I still have to remind myself, but a baby grows up and it becomes independent. And a company will take everything you give it and ask more. The larger the company, the more it takes. But when you are the one who started the company, you think you have to give it everything, but it doesn't. Because you have to be the one who sets the boundaries because the company never will. And the last thing, you're allowed to not be okay. You are allowed to admit that you're tired. You're allowed to admit that you're broken. And it's not some bullshit performative hashtag vulnerability, hashtag self-awareness, self-care kind of way. I mean, actually, structurally in your bones, not okay. Like the deep down, you have no idea what to do. And the thing that happens when you admit that, you finally identify and you make room for change. As long as you're performing, you're fine, then nothing moves. So when I talk about the fire, like burnout's such a thing. But when I talk about the fire that almost destroyed me, it almost ate me, it changed me. It burned away parts of my identity that were built on proving something to the world instead of building something for myself. And what's left, it's quieter, it's more at peace, it's less founder, and it's more real, and it's me, and it's mine. And that feeling is unbelievable. It's indescribable. It's such a good feeling. And getting to share this story with everyone here is even more therapy than any therapy that I've ever done. And it's my truth. And it's amazing. So if this resonated with you, I'm not going to ask you to leave a review. Send it to a founder that you know. Send it to someone that you know is burnt out. Send it to someone, whoever it is, because everyone has that person in their life. You know who they are. You've seen the signs. You know they're burnt out. You don't know how to help them. And maybe they'll listen to a random kid on a podcast called The Real Slim Fatty Show. So I'm Fatty. This has been The Real Slim Fatty Show. Thank you for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.